They laughed when he walked into the ballroom wearing a simple suit. One executive whispered, "Security must have made a mistake." Moments later, in front of over 200 guests, they humiliated him, mocked his appearance, and threw him out of the biggest business celebration of the year. But what none of them knew was that the quiet man they had just insulted owned the company behind the billion-dollar deal they were celebrating. And before the night was over, every smile in that room would disappear. If you love emotional stories with shocking twists and satisfying endings, subscribe, like this video, and let's begin. The invitation had arrived in a plain white envelope. No gold lettering, no expensive packaging, just one simple card with the words, "Meridian Grand Ballroom, Annual Partnership Gala, Formal Attire Required." I almost didn't go. Business galas were never my thing. I preferred factories over fancy hotels. I preferred solving problems instead of shaking hands for cameras. But my assistant insisted. "Sir," she said, "this partnership is worth over $1 billion. Even if no one knows you personally, your presence matters." She was right. So I put on my favorite navy blue suit, polished my shoes, and drove myself to the hotel. No driver, no security, no luxury car. Just me. The ballroom looked incredible. Crystal chandeliers sparkled from the ceiling. Live music filled the room. Executives laughed while holding expensive wine glasses. Everyone looked important. As I walked toward the entrance, the receptionist smiled politely. "Your name, sir?" she asked. "Ethan Carter." She checked the guest list. Her eyes widened. "Oh, yes, Mr. Carter. Welcome." Before she could hand me my badge, a man wearing an expensive tuxedo stepped forward. He looked me up and down. "Are you sure he's supposed to be here?" The receptionist nodded nervously. "He is on the list." The man smirked. Maybe someone entered the wrong Ethan Carter. Several guests nearby chuckled. I ignored them. This wasn't the first time people judged me by my clothes. Growing up poor teaches you something valuable. People always underestimate quiet people. I walked into the ballroom. Almost immediately I noticed something strange. No one knew who I was. That wasn't surprising. For years I had intentionally stayed out of magazines, interviews, and social media. My company never used my face for marketing. I believed businesses should speak through results, not personalities. That decision had kept my life peaceful. Until tonight. As dinner began, every table had name cards. Mine had mysteriously disappeared. An event organizer frowned. "I'm sorry, sir. There seems to be a mistake." One executive laughed loudly. "Maybe his table is in the kitchen." The room exploded with laughter. I simply smiled. "It's okay." Another woman added, "Maybe he's someone's accountant." More laughter. I quietly stood near the back wall instead. The CEO of Horizon Developments climbed onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, we celebrate the largest partnership in our company's history." Everyone applauded. Our $1 billion expansion project. The audience cheered even louder. Then he continued. "And we'd especially like to thank the investment company that made this possible." A massive screen behind him displayed the company logo, Carter Global Holdings. The audience clapped politely. Most people had heard of the company. Very few knew its owner. The CEO smiled confidently. Unfortunately, Mr. Carter couldn't attend tonight. I couldn't help smiling, because I was standing 20 feet away. Before I could say anything, one of the executives who had mocked me walked over holding a glass of red wine. He looked directly at me. "You don't belong here. I think it's time you leave." I remained calm. "I'm actually waiting for someone." He laughed. "We're all waiting for someone richer than you." People nearby laughed again. Then, he deliberately bumped into me. Wine splashed across my suit. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Instead of apologizing, he smiled. "I guess now you really need to leave." The security guards started walking toward me. One guard spoke politely. "Sir, we've received complaints." I'm going to ask you to leave. I nodded. No problem. Then I reached into my pocket. Not for revenge, not for anger, just for my phone. I called one number. Emily, I'm downstairs. You can come up now. The ballroom doors opened. A woman in a black business suit entered, with 6 senior executives behind her. Everyone turned. People immediately recognized her. Emily Ross, president of Carter Global Holdings. The CEO rushed toward her. Ms. Ross, what an honor. We're disappointed Mr. Carter couldn't attend. Emily looked confused. He did attend. Silence. She looked around the ballroom, then walked directly toward me. She smiled warmly. Sorry I'm late, sir. Every face froze. The CEO blinked. Sir? Emily turned toward everyone. I'd like to introduce the founder, owner, and chairman of Carter Global Holdings, Mr. Ethan Carter. The room became completely silent. The same people who laughed at me seconds earlier suddenly looked terrified. The executive holding the empty wine glass dropped it onto the floor. Crash. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The CEO's face turned pale. I had no idea. I smiled politely. I noticed. He immediately began apologizing. So sorry. There must have been a misunderstanding. Another executive interrupted. We deeply apologize. It won't happen again. I looked around the room. They laughed. Mocked. Humiliated. Judged. Not because of who I was, because of how I looked. I walked slowly toward the stage, picked up the microphone, and looked at more than 200 guests. I grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment. My father repaired broken machines. My mother cleaned offices. We never owned expensive clothes, but they taught me something priceless. Respect people before you know their bank account. The room stayed silent. You celebrated a billion-dollar partnership tonight, but you failed the smallest investment. Kindness. Several people lowered their heads. I continued. I've spent 20 years building a company, not by humiliating people, but by listening, by respecting workers, by remembering every employee has dignity. Then I looked directly at the executive who spilled wine on me. I forgive you. His eyes filled with relief. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. I turned toward Emily. Cancel tomorrow's signing ceremony. Gasps spread across the ballroom. The CEO nearly collapsed. Please, we can fix this. Emily waited for my answer. I paused, then smiled. We'll continue the partnership. Another sigh of relief swept through the room. After every executive here completes mandatory leadership and respect training. No one argued. No one complained. Because they knew they had earned it. The partnership moved forward. Even stronger than before. Several executives personally apologized. Some even admitted that night changed how they treated employees forever. 1 year later, employee satisfaction reached the highest level in company history. Productivity increased, profits increased, respect increased. Sometimes, the most valuable lesson in business isn't found in billion-dollar contracts. It's found in the way you treat the person who seems to have nothing to offer. Because the quietest person in the room may be the one holding the future in his hands.